So this video is going to be talking about the second pillar of Islam, which is prayer or Salah. So two key words to look at first of all. You've got Salah, which is the Arabic word for prayer, and the word dua, which means supplication. The questions we're going to be working towards are the different types and the purposes of prayer and how it's done, and also are certain types of prayers more valuable than others. So, for example, is the Jummah prayers, which are done on a Friday, more important than other types of prayers? Other questions might consider the ritualistic nature of it. So, are the actions more important than the thought process or the intention behind it? And then we'll get onto that in a second. So, why do Muslims pray? So this is one of the five pillars, the second of them, which was set up by Muhammad when they were in Medina, and it's seen as one of the most important ones. And so the first quote explains this quite well. If there were a river at the door of one of you in which he takes a bath 5 times a day, would any soiling remain on him? That is the 5 obligatory Salat prayers. Allah obliterates all sin as a result of performing them. So it's seen as a way of almost spiritually washing yourself of sin and a reminder to be a good Muslim 5 times a day. It's also important to consider the benefits of Salah. So it puts you in contact 5 times a day. It reminds you to be a good Muslim. It strengthens your belief in God and the existence of goodness. It makes belief a practical thing you can do in everyday life, and it's meant to make you more moral, more virtuous, and it purifies your heart and your mind. And so it's an opportunity to stop, reflect, and to remind yourself to be a good Muslim during the day. So this slide is a grid to help you kind of plan your notes on this section of the course. You'll find a PDF attached to your homeworks for this video, or you could also print this off or use it as a template for your notes on a piece of paper. But you'll see on there all the key questions we're going to be discussing as part of this video. So when do Muslims pray? They are closely tied into the times of the day and the movements of the sun, because it does change every day depending on sunrise and sunset. But Muslims are specifically told not to pray at these precise moments because it associates the religion with paganism, and that will be seen as shirk. So you'll see the names of the different prayers on here. So there's 5 for the Sunnis, and the Shia Muslims, they combine some of the prayers, so they do kind of 3 prayers. And so there's a sunrise prayer, an afternoon, a late afternoon, a sunset, and an evening prayer. And you can see the names located on there, and you'll have that on your worksheet as well. So before prayer takes place, there is a ritual washing which takes place, which is called wudu. And so the quote at the top is a useful one for this section. So when you rise up to prayer, wash your faces and your hands as far as your elbows, and wipe your heads and your feet to your ankles. And so there's a set of actions which take place during this. And it's also important to recognise that it's about the intention as well. So the niyah is also important. So they wash their faces, their arms, their head, their feet, their mouth and nose as well. And as they do this, they enter this sort of state of ritual kind of purity. And the next slide is quite nice. It talks about the mystical side of prayer, and it has some quotations associated with each of the movements of the ritual washing which takes place, but to show how you become a spiritually better person as well. So this is a nice little clip from Saudi Arabia in Riyadh, and it shows you the mosques, and it shows you the speakers at the top of the mosques where up from the minarets, from the towers, where the call to prayer is announced to show Muslims when it is time to pray. So there was a signal given, the time to pray. So in Muslim countries it's done loudly so the whole city can hear it and be summoned to the mosque to pray. And in countries that aren't Muslim, it is done within the mosque or within the home. And the person who recites the adhan is called the muaddin. I've pronounced that terribly, so I apologise. And you'll also see the wording of the call to prayer. It has some basic statements about Allah is the greatest, Muhammad is the messenger, and prayer is better than sleep, which is quite an interesting idea. And there's a slight difference between the Sunni and the Shia, who mention Ali specifically. So you can see some footage inside a mosque here and see some Muslims getting ready to do their prayers. And so what happens next is the actual movements. And so they face towards the Qibla, and there's something called a mihrab, which is the indentation in the side of the mosque, which shows the direction of Makkah. Then you stand, put your arms folded, and then you do a bow and a full prostration down to the ground. And the difference between the Sunni and the Shia is the Shia use a small kind of clay tablet, so they don't go all the way to the ground, because Prophet Muhammad apparently used one of these as well. So some rules which are important during prayer. Clothing must be clean and richly pure. If you pray more or less units from required, your Salah is invalid and must be repeated. If you get distracted during Salah, you look at your phone or you respond to someone calling you or look away, you must do them again. If you do the Salah in a different order or miss out some of the actions, your Salah is invalid and must be repeated. And if it's performed at a wrong time, it is a sin to not pray in a given kind of time slot. So you need to know about the different types of prayer, and you'll find this on your little worksheet. So the first one is nafilah, pronounced terribly, sorry about that. But in Islam, it's a type of optional prayer, so it's an extra prayer. So it's not an obligatory one. It's not part of the 5 daily prayers. It's an extra one which you can do. And they believe there's benefits for that. And they do that because the Prophet Muhammad himself did do extra prayers. So the next one, the night prayers, is an extra prayer during the night and is recommended for all Muslims. Although not obligatory, it takes place between the evening prayer and the morning prayer. And so some Muslims argue it's best performed in the last third of the night, and other Muslims even try to make it part of their daily routine. It's preceded by the usual preparations, waking with intent, washing and finding a quiet place. So this is the tasbih, or the glorification prayer, is a form of remembrance for Allah that involves a repetition of certain utterances or kind of phrases, short sentences which praise and glorify Allah. They're associated with the super beads, so there's different names for these, and you'll see a picture of them at the bottom, but these are used to help kind of guide the prayer and focus the prayer and the meditation. There's 99 of these beads, or 33 beads on a string, depending on which version you have. And it's a sort of structure or rhythm which helps Muslims focus on their prayer. So the word, or Sufi prayer, is a form of particular prayer that's used in Sufi Islam. It's used to describe reflective chanting, focus, and either on the names and glorification of Allah, or reflective chanting. In Sufism, this is more ritualized. Although it involves private prayer concentrating on reciting the Quran, it also extends to the use of certain phrases and devotional hymns in immediate text. The most famous example is a type of dance, which is a sort of circular dance. I'll show you a clip of that in a second. The next one is called the dua prayer, which is supplication. So it's derived from the word to call out or summon. So this is a kind of an immediate prayer, a specific thing people are worried about or a specific need, and it's kind of like calling out to God to help them. So this is the traditional Friday prayer, known as the Jummah prayer. And so Muhammad advised people to look after themselves, take a bath, to put perfume on, to groom on this day before prayer, as it's a communal activity. And so the rakas take place, the call to prayer will take place, and then the congregation will remove their shoes, enter the mosque, and carry out the movements, as well as hearing a sermon from the imam as well. So this is obligatory, so for Sunni Muslims, but for Shia Muslims, it's an optional. And so I couldn't finish the video without a little bit of Blue Mosque in Istanbul, one of those beautiful places I've been to. And then the questions you're going to be asked, something like this. I'll look at the questions on screen. So the extent to which prayer is simply a ritual act of piety. So is it a structured thing? Does it lose its meaning? Do distractions really make prayer meaningless? People are only human, so they are going to get distracted. Should it be public? Should it be private? But surely Allah is the only one who really knows if it's a meaningful activity or not. So look through the arguments in the textbook and use this to kind of help you with that question. And also whether Jummah prayers are the most important prayers of all. So they're Friday prayers. Males are expected to attend, but not women. It's not their duty. Friday prayers are commanded in the Quran. Friday prayers show the unity of the brotherhood. Prayers in the mosque provide structure, guidance and teaching which isn't gained on your own. You could argue that prayer is always individual. You could say that it's impractical to carry out a Friday, and it's discriminatory because women aren't included. You can argue that all prayers are equally valid, and you could finish off with something about Friday prayers are the most important because it's the opportunity for the Muslim community to kind of get together.